Hi, I'm Christine Young. It's Thursday. Sit back, relax. I'm on the green couch.
So, Raz, we're speaking to our listeners from the past, so this is some sort of time travel. So, listeners, if you can go back in time, go and see Terabyte last night at the Highland Park Bowl.
Yes.
It will have been awesome. Go to the Time Travel Mart in Echo Park, sort it out.
There you go. Yeah.
Whenever you are, we're already there. That's their motto.
Oh, man. I'm glad you had something to talk about. Because I really
talk about, man. All I do is talk.
I know. I came into this one. I had nothing. I normally have like a gripe or a beef, but I got nothing.
Did you read that New York Times article about the holograms I sent you?
I did not.
Awesome. So let me tell you about it.
Okay, tell me about it.
You've been to Hollywood recently?
Yes.
Have you seen the hologram theater on Hollywood Boulevard?
No.
Do you have an idea as to what I'm talking about? There's this Victorian projection technique. Aubrey, do you know what it's called?
It's where they have a hidden room that is, everything in the room is lit up and it's being reflected off of glass in a space that the audience can see. So you get this like 3D projection type image that looks very ghostly.
It's what they use in the Haunted Mansion at Disney World. I forget what the thing is. It's something's ghost.
Okay.
They use those, and the projection that's going onto the glass is this really detailed CGI of dead performers.
Oh, wow.
Billie Holiday, Frank Zappa. The New York Times article focuses a lot on the upcoming Dio tour.
Like Ronnie James?
Is there another?
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
It is or is going to or did feature an astral projection of the man with the horns.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the thing that's like, it's freaky enough as it is.
Sure.
Pepper's Ghost. That's what it's called. Pepper's Ghost.
Normally that type of thing hits you at like 3 a.m. and you like jump up and you go, Pepper's Ghost.
If I'm on a good day, man, it just happens either in the moment or shortly thereafter. But there's this whole industry that's cropping up for all these classic artists who existed in a time when they were able to capture a lot of footage of them.
Yeah.
Not years, but when I say like that, it sounds older than it is. But like, maybe 8-9 years ago, they debuted this in sort of like a weird way at Coachella.
I remember that.
With Tupac.
Yes.
Where they projected, this is a little bit different, I guess, maybe, but they projected the footage onto like a body double.
What?
Yeah, so it's like a dude was on stage and then they like Andy Warhol and the Velvet Underground, like blast an image at him and it makes him look like Tupac.
Wow. Yeah, no, I remember when that happened and I think I think Anderson Cooper was going to try it on CNN or something like that too.
And now the Silver Fox is going to interview Tupac.
Totally.
Did they call him the Silver Fox?
I have no idea.
Anderson Cooper? Maybe he'd be like,
I don't know.
A sable, something. It gets weirder, right? Okay, so there's this thing that happens in Hollywood where in older cities, my favorite example is on Grand Central Station in Manhattan in New York. On top of the arch on the exterior facade of the building, crest of the city. Got your windmills, your Dutch windmills representing the colonization by the Dutch, when it was still New Amsterdam. You've got some trees and shit, and then on top of it is a sculpture of Mercury, representing like when the building was built. Like, this is how fast we're going now. Like, we are as fast as the word of mouth, as fast as Hermes, as fast as the gods. It's great symbolism. But in Los Angeles, there's this thing that happens where none of the architecture is old enough, and the Art Deco that is old enough is not typically adorned in this way. And what takes the place of this sort of symbolism through architecture and civic art is paintings of Marilyn Monroe.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Frida Kahlo, James Dean, Marilyn Monroe, and Jim Morrison a lot too. Marilyn Monroe, in a weird way, gets it the most.
Yes.
And there is this T-shirt that they sell on Olvera Street, which is a tatted up, like, big boobed woman with like a tiny, skimpy little Dodgers T-shirt on, and like cleavage and tattoos and everything coming out, and then Marilyn Monroe's face pasted on top of her face.
You gotta love Photoshop, right?
It's so weird because it's just like, oh yeah, this woman is so hot, but she's not like this weird pseudo goddess that us Angelinos and Hollywood types have deemed to be the patron saint of the city, in such a way that we mark every avenue and corner and building top with her visage. A similar thing happens in these Pepper's Ghosts 3D projections, where there's all these people now, like, who are alive and are just the vessels for recreating the career of Whitney Houston or Tupac, where they're everything you want them to be. They're a really great replica, but they're not the thing. So they wear the suit with the balls on it, and they go into a studio where they scan their bodies, doing all the choreographed dance moves from Whitney's 1985 whatever tour, and then they just paint Whitney Houston on top of her.
Yeah, so it's just like it's like the Lord of the Rings thing, where the guy was.
Oh yeah, where Ian McKellen is yelling at the tennis ball on the end of the stick.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's what. So they're doing. Okay, I know what you're doing. So they're doing motion capture.
Yes, that's the in word for it.
Yes. So they are. Yeah, okay. I thought this was like holograms, like like.
Oh, like Star Wars holograms.
Right, yeah, that's the only my frame of reference for holograms is Star Wars and the Tupac thing that happened, and I wasn't paying attention.
Well, it's all of these things, right? Like, they shoot a cloud of smoke and then they project lasers into that, and so somebody can like appear and disappear. They use the Pepper's Ghost plated glass trick. They use the body double with the projections on top. The takeaway from this, apart from all of the science fiction weirdness, is that there is a growing industry of concerts by people who are not there. The article in question, the Times article, says that like 60% of ticket sales is made up by like the Eagles, Paul McCartney, and Bruce Springsteen. Something like crazy, where it's just like these super boomer groups, and they're all going to be dead real soon. And what then to the live music industry?
Well, I say you do an Eagles cover band, like an Eagles tribute band.
And we're back to episode 3 with the cover band argument.
Right. No, I could, and it's actually, from a business standpoint, it makes sense, because like the Eagles are no longer a band, right? The Eagles are a product. It's much like they're the same thing with Springsteen. He's a product. And there are people that make money off of the Springsteen product, and Springsteen included, but there's also people that are around Springsteen that make money.
Right. So it's a good business venture to invest in scanning Bruce Springsteen now.
Right.
so they can finish Secretariat without BoJack Horseman later on.
Exactly. Right. So yeah, no, it's actually, it's interesting because, things are moving into this AI world, and there is going to come a point where it just gets blurred. It just, it gets blurred because there is still that thing for people that want to see, like, they want to go see Elvis, for example, and you're not going to find those people like in the young club scene that's coming up in like LA or New York.
No, you'll find them on Hollywood Boulevard paying $25 a ticket to see Elvis in a can.
Yeah, you're going to see him, right. You're going to see it in Vegas, and you're going to see it probably in places like London and stuff like that. Since I didn't read the article,
I summarized it.
That was a pretty good summary, though. That was actually really good. It was.
The reason I bring it up, though, right? Like it's a good business venture, but artistically, it is the calcification of a sound. It is like the halting of progress, because like it asks no one to pick up the mantle. Like I'm not a Fish fan, but if I were a big Grateful Dead fan, I might be a big Fish fan, because for, the periods of time that the Dead are not available, Fish was like the continuation of that, like in the way that, like, I don't who, like, there must be other examples of like people who are sort of like this generation's that. Like the Metallica for Led Zeppelin is the one that Chuck Klosterman talks about.
Right. Yeah. No. And that. Yeah. Because there has to be that, like, that super. Well, there used to be, but there used to have to be that like super band, and it was Led Zeppelin that was like the big heavyweight band for a while. And it was actually between like Metallica and Guns N' Roses. Metallica kind of won that out.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a side step here. I contend that Metallica ruined heavy metal. I mean, like, heavy metal was ridiculous, and we're not going to stay on this very long. Like, heavy metal got ridiculous, and something needed to die, but I'm all for the way that Nirvana killed everything by just making something awesome and
making everything else look silly.
Right. Metallica came in and just tried to make metal serious, and it just kind of ushered in like this whole douchebaggery of just serious metal. And metal, initially, it was fun. It was like the beginnings of it were, like Mark Bolan and glam. And it was just like, rock stars were supposed to be ridiculous. David Lee Roth was supposed to be ridiculous, but Metallica came in and ruined that. So we're not going to get into that. I just needed to say that because you brought up Metallica. Conversely, I will not go see the Metallica, whatever it is, the hologram show when I'm like 90 or 80 or whatever it is they fucking die. So I'm not going to that. But I can see how people would want to go see like Buddy Holly, or even as like, I don't know who they have, but there are people that in the metal scene that really like revere Ronnie James Dio, and they never got a chance to see him because he's kind of one of those metal guys that kind of, he was in that beginning phase of like demon metal, and, it was a little ridiculous, but then he started to become cool as he, like, it's that whole thing. You're a painter until you die, and then you're an artist. Right? So that's kind of what happened to Dio. So there's a reverence for him where people used to think that he was, a little ridiculous. There's still a reverence for him to go, oh, I'd want to see this because, he's Dio.
I think that the article raised that point about the fact that the touring industry is dying and it's creating this huge vacancy, which they're attempting to and partly successfully filling with these photocopies. We need good live acts to pick up the torch and to keep moving forward. Yes. And so when in October, November, Aubrey and I went to the Satellite to see Stunt Driver play at this other artist's residency. We were really delighted to see what that artist did, and that was KRISTEEN YOUNG. Thankfully, that's our guest tonight. She's a really wonderful performer, and her presence on a stage...
Yeah, I wasn't at the show, but you guys told me about it, and I heard she's great. and you guys did the interview,
Mhm.
so I'm just going to listen. But what we'll do is we'll play a little Christine Young, and then we will jump into the interview that you and Aubrey did with her.
Cool. All right. Here is Christine Young. You don't happen to be a blues fan, do you?
I've been to a blues game.
See? Told you.
I'm like, most artists don't care about sports, Bill.
Surprise.
I
This is
don't
a hockey podcast.
I don't follow sports, but like I used to play a lot of sports when I was younger, and then of course I'm surrounded by people who are into sports. So you sort of end up at a game here and there every once in a while.
What did you play?
Softball and basketball, soccer.
Any particular positions? Were these long-standing relationships
Yeah.
with this games?
Yes, it was like Little League, the softball. I was a catcher.
Cool. That was in not St. Paul,
Yeah, St. Louis.
St. Louis.
The Louis Saint.
How long were you there?
How long was I in St. Louis?
Yeah, that's where you grew up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you spend like all of your formative years there? Or
Yes.
did you leave there like,
I was a
I'm getting out of this shithole?
Well, it took me a while. I was a foster kid, and it took, I don't come from any kind of money whatsoever, like no money. And so I had to really work my way out of there. Also, St. Louis has a very low cost of living. So you have to you have to save twice as long to get out of there so you can support yourself just even for a little bit in another city, until you can find work in another city. So, yeah, I was there until, I left around early 20s.
Okay. So, but you always had an intention of leaving St. Louis.
Not always. Like I didn't really see a point in leaving just to do music, but it became apparent that like it was going to stay the same forever unless I left, because
Sure.
I didn't play extremely mainstream or party music or anything. So it's like, okay, well, these 100 people, I don't know the amount, around that amount, these 100 people will always go to my shows and stuff, but it's not going to maybe get much larger than that here, particularly since St. Louis is kind of a conventional town.
How'd you get into music in the first place?
I don't know. I was always sort of like, a kid that liked to make stuff. And I think there was like an old upright piano in the house I grew up in, and I used to bang around on it and pretend it was a guitar. Because on the radio, all the songs at the time were guitar. So it's
Sure.
like, why doesn't this sound like a guitar? So I think that's what made me play it the way I do, like sort of like bashing and
Very percussive.
and running it through effects and stuff.
Okay, cool. And so you were playing music in St. Louis. You reached a point where you looked and said, if I ever want this to get any better,
Yes.
it has to be somewhere else.
Or just different. If I ever want this to change in any way, I'm going to have to leave. Yes.
And where'd you go?
I went to the East Coast. I didn't initially go to New York because the drummer, Jeff, who's played with me, for a long time, he left St. Louis with me too, and we moved
Oh, so you guys have been playing together this whole time.
off and on. We've taken a couple of breaks from each other
Yeah.
and I've played in different forms, but yeah, when we moved to the East Coast, but we couldn't really figure out how to live in New York, or like, because we chose New York because we had a decent amount of sales on the East Coast, so we figured, oh, they must like us, so we might do well there. So we decided to go there, but we couldn't really afford it to be in New York. We didn't know anyone there, so I had done an interview at a magazine that was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and they said, why don't you live here for a while, and then you can just drive into all the cities and stuff. And
That's
so
what they like to say in Eastern Pennsylvania.
yes. Oh, are you from there?
No, but
Oh,
no.
how do you know they say that?
Well, it's because it's the bridge and tunnel of bridge and tunnel.
It's true. It's extra bridge and tunnel. But yeah, so I did that for a year and a half or something, and
Was Lancaster worth remembering?
it was interesting. Yeah, it was an experience. It served its purpose, and although the people that urged us to move there almost immediately moved out west, so that was strange.
These are the magazine people?
Yes, they almost like just after a few months they left and went to Idaho or some state like that.
What magazine was this? Was it anything?
It was called Fright X.
Was this like a zine?
It was a magazine. It was like, yeah.
Full word magazine. All right.
I was trying to get on a label, and I didn't know how to get to majors, or anything. And so I thought, well, I'll send out some demos to record producers because sometimes they have deals with labels. So I sent to 6 different record producers, and I got a good response for them. But one of them was Tony Visconti, who was in New York, and he's called me on a Sunday morning, and he was like, this is the best demo I've gotten in years. I want to work with you right away. And so that was sort of the catalyst to get to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ended up bringing Bowie to a show of mine. And that's how I ended up singing and playing on Heathen. I was there for the whole making of that because they were just letting me hang out. And I was there for the whole making of that album. It was like school. I took everything in. Like I was just a part of everything. And it was a huge learning experience for me. Like, and not just musically, I saw, like, because I was always very awkward socially and everything. And it was great to watch him, how he talked to people and how, like, the people who he worked with. And I learned a lot from that.
Were you able to take those lessons and apply them directly to the stuff that you've subsequently created?
Definitely in a working relationship, sort of, I learned a lot about that. And I try to apply it. I mean, I'm sure it's taken me I'm a slow learner when it comes to stuff like talking to people and relationships and stuff. So I'm sure it's taken me longer to apply it than just immediately. But
I don't know. I never met David Bowie, but I imagine he was very calm and cool and collected and, didn't throw tantrums or do things like that. And so bringing that to the table as a means of being able to conduct yourself in working relationships with, other people who could serve to benefit your career, it must have been
It is, but it was really more rudimentary than that. Like I had such communication problems, like I couldn't even like I still stammer a lot, but I couldn't even like carry on a conversation that easily. I would get very nervous or very like, I had a lot of nerves issues and stuff. And like, I don't know, I just watching him, I'm also like, I don't know, I was just able to pick it up and maybe imitate it and then become it in some way, like you do like acting or something.
Sure.
Like when Tony, when we first met, he said he was stunned at how like meek I was and compared to how I was on stage and my music. And he said it was shocking. Like I seemed almost fragile or something.
I haven't had an opportunity to listen to that first record, but in between, is that the sort of material that Tony Visconti ended up hearing? was
He heard an album called Enemy. That's
Okay.
what I sent him.
I think that's really sweet and special that like at a really early point in your, it seems like an early point in your career,
It was very early.
you get discovered by this really
Especially looking back, it seems incredible that I got that opportunity to do that and witness that, because like at the time, I had just arrived in New York, really just arrived on the East Coast. So it's like, oh, of course I arrive here and I meet Tony and David Bowie, and of course he works with me, and of course I like it. Just it happened so fast. It seemed it. I didn't take it in as much. I mean, I did, but I didn't. It has a lot. It seems more significant in retrospect.
So what have you been inspired by lately?
What have I been inspired by lately? I don't even know if I can answer that question. I don't know. Lately, I've been trying to break away from everyone around me. Like just like with this album that just came out and everything that I did for the album, the videos, I've been trying to, I did it all I did everything myself. I mean, I did most everything myself before, but this time I really wanted to do it because I felt like I was being, no matter what I would do, it would be attributed to these men around me. And I was starting to be looked at as a peripheral in their lives or something. So I was like, I have to get rid of all this. Like, no matter, I have to make it very, very clear that I'm doing all of this myself.
Does that striving for independence characterize the majority of the body of work on this recent release?
I don't know. I did a residency in London in November, and while I was there, I sang on a song that was like, I don't know, it's some single, and like they asked me if I would come in and sing some background vocals for them while I was in town, and they're great musicians, so I was like, okay.
That was like the fourth residency or third residency. How many did you do last year?
Yeah, I did one in New York in September, and then in October, I did one here in Los Angeles at the Satellite, and also simultaneously in San Francisco at DNA Lounge. And I drove back each week from residency.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, you were doing them on like what?
Yeah,
Tuesday,
Mondays
and
I
Thursdays
did
or
Satellite,
something?
and Wednesdays I did.
Holy
yeah.
cow, that's a commute. Your work seems, I was struggling to find a way to characterize it. It seems very pointed. You sent us a music video ahead of the recording of this where you characterize it as being akin to a lyric video, but it's you commenting and sort of adding metadata to the narrative around the construction and writing of the song. After having seen that video and the recorded spoken word piece you performed at your residency this past October at the Satellite about your role as an artist and your relationship with your drummer is part of what I remember about it, that you're being very assertive with viewers and the audience and listeners about what the point of the song is. And I find that unique in that many musicians have been more apt to try and obfuscate what motivated them to create a song, or felt perhaps more comfortable in vagaries rather than having it pinned down. But you seem to be charging headlong in the opposite direction, which is admirable. I mean, it takes a lot of conviction to be so, and at times literal. Is there...
Yeah.
That's why I was asking if the body of work was centered around that break for independence, because if I'm not mistaken, that lyric video comes from the Subset, the latest record, right?
Yes. Years ago, I wrote in my book, be brave, have no fear of the literal. I think that's what speaks to people. Believe me, like, I love poetry, I love symbolism, all of that, but like, I love literal. People know what you're talking about. And I mean, things can have 5 meanings too.
We were charmed by the duality of a song named Saint Even being about, or written to, perhaps, somebody named Stephen.
Yes.
So there is, you are still seeming to play with tricks of words and...
Oh, I love word. Yeah, I'm a word person. So
you big reader?
I read. I'm not a big, I don't know
You're
if I'm
not
a big reader.
illiterate,
If
per
I had
se.
more time, I would. But like, yeah, I fancy myself a bit of a, lyric writer.
Okay, yeah. I guess that's maybe what I was curious about. You know, there's the hyper-literate, like, Nick Caves of the world who, like, publicly, it sounds redundant, publicly publish, you know, lists of, like, books they've been reading. Or they write a song that's, like, an adaptation of the Odyssey or something like that. And I didn't know if...
No, I'm not like that.
Okay, that's fair. I mean...
You're asking me if I'm obnoxious? No.
Do you think he's obnoxious?
I don't know.
Maybe
that kind of
ham-fisted?
stuff makes me roll my eyes a little bit. But
Sure,
like,
there is the world of taking yourself too seriously. For all of that frankness in your work, there is, it appears as though you have a sense of humor. I mean, you're having this...
well, you have to have a sense of humor. We're all going to die. Like, if we're all going to die, you have to have a sense of humor. It's ridiculous. And you can't take anything that seriously.
Well, let's listen to a bit of a song and then come back. Christine, is there a song that you think we should listen to?
Did you have one that you wanted to play? I mean, I would choose Less Than, but...
Would you call that the lead single off the new record?
Yes.
All right. Let's listen to a bit of Less Than, and we'll be right back.
You want me getting average grades and minimum wage, sleeping in the
So that was Less Than by our guest, Christine Young. Noisy.
Is it? I thought it sounded kind of empty.
It's one thing to be performative at a performance. When we saw you play at your residency in Los Angeles this past October at the Satellite, slamming your keys, like, I would not have been surprised to have not heard that on the recordings, but that you employ it as just another attribute of your playing is,
I think it's refreshing.
yeah. What made you think empty?
Oh, I think it's just because I've been working on something this week. This has like a lot of stuff going on in it. So it's probably just that's in my brain. So that just seemed so different than what I've been working on.
I just wanted to ask you about your vocals because they're so operatic and that's not easy to do.
I did take lessons when, I was in school. I was a music theory composition like major, but I also sang in operas in school. Just recently, last year, I started taking voice lessons again, and that changed my whole life on that level. Again, because throughout your life, singers get in, it's just natural. It happens to everybody. Like, sometimes your voice gets in a weird place. Like, maybe you've been performing, I don't know, maybe you've been ill, or maybe you've just been, I don't know, you've gone through something traumatic or emotional, and like you get in weird places with your voice. And I kind of felt like I was in a strange place with my voice, so I started taking lessons again, and it was just like, oh, it's like I have my old voice, like and I'm thrilled and more. It's like and it was one of the best things I ever did.
So are you working on a new record or
I was working on a remix this week.
Of the Heathen material you said, or of
No.
the Savior?
Of Savior, yeah.
Right. Is that to any particular end?
Yeah, yes.
Are you allowed to say?
Yeah, it's going to come out for Record Store Day.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
What's Record Store Days? May?
April.
April. Thank you. I'm thinking of Free Comic Book Day.
But I did it with Justin Raisin, who did he just produced the Kim Gordon record.
Oh, cool. But this past record came out this last
This one came out
September.
in September, yeah.
How's it been working out so far?
It's been working out all right. It was album of the week one week for LA Weekly, and people seem to like it, but I'm ready to write the next one. And when I go after this trip, I'm going to go back and write the next one. I'm finished with it, in other words.
That's cool. I mean,
I'm ready to do something. I'm ready to do something different.
I'm always like baffled by how somebody, like a Paul Simon type can take like years, or like a Leonard Cohen, just like chewing on a song line by line. It's like, guy, it's been like 10 years. Where's your record?
Yeah.
Like the Beastie Boys have more records than you now, and they've been around for like half as long. So like, how do you? So it's nice and it's exciting, and it sounds like you've got a head full of ideas to go ahead and produce another body of work.
Yes.
I'd be curious to ask, how does the subset factor into the trajectory of your work, and where do you see it going from there? Is there anything defining about it?
Well, I wanted to do it all myself, and I decided going in that I just wanted to do everything differently. Like, I wanted to make different choices. Like, the songs are, all different lengths. I made different choices. I recorded the whole thing on 8-track cassette. That was sort of my guidelines for that. And I also just wanted the songs to sound fresh. Like when you're a teen and you just like love music, like I don't know, I did. Like I just loved music, and it didn't have any other associations with it. It didn't have any music business stuff associated. I just wanted it to be clean and fresh like that, and then also make different choices. Those are my only guidelines for it. And I have different guidelines for the next one, but they're just stuff like that, sort of just things I keep reminding myself, like as I'm writing.
What are you trying to employ in the new record?
Making this remix this week was really transformative for me. I got clearer about what I wanted to do for the next one with it, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. I mean, it sounds like a new song, and I'm just so excited about it. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say things like that, you know. It just was one of the best experiences I ever had. You know, it's like I was sitting there when we were doing it, I'm like, oh, life can be like this too. It doesn't always have to be full of betrayal and lies and disappointment. Every once in a while, it feels like, you know, I don't know what you imagined it would feel like. And anyway, I had a really good experience.
You recorded it all on like an
Yeah.
8-track. Yeah. All right. Cool. That's what. Was that? Were you going for like a certain warmth of sound?
Yes. Yes. And also, it just seemed more tactile. Like I could, I don't know. I get really tired of. I make digital, like the videos I make on my phone, and like, you know, I work in the digital world, you know, like, but I just get tired of screens sometimes, and I just like tactile things.
Because the song itself features a lot of programmed drums and looped vocals and things like
Yes.
that. So it seemed it's just a surprising juxtapositions to suggest that you're saying like, oh yeah, I wanted to make the record really have this warm analog capacity about it, but then to open the record up with this really glitchy sounding tune.
Yes. The song has real drums on it, though.
Sure. It. So are you saying that those are all real drums and they've been sampled and sort of like
No,
articulated?
Jeff's playing drums on that song.
So that's
The one we just played?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, it
oh,
has
none of
both.
that-
It has electronic
all right.
drums, too. Yeah.
I wanted to make certain I wasn't misunderstanding you there.
Yeah. No, it has both. I mean, I did program stuff in my Roland FA07, like at first, you know, like I did some stuff, and then I
Is that
recorded
the keyboard
it.
you use live?
Yeah. Yes. It's the only keyboard I used for this recording. But and then I put it in the 8-track.
Am I crazy or is it covered in duct tape? Is it silver?
It is. It's like chrome tape. Yes. My older keyboard had like mirrors all over it, and it became a problem. I mean, for years I had the like it's mirrors all over, but it became sort of a problem. Not only did it break and would cut people if they tried to like pick it up, so I would never let anybody else pick it up. But like it also makes it very heavy having the mirrors on
It's
it.
covered
So
in fucking glass.
yeah. So when I would have to fly with it, it would always, you know, it's way overweight and everything. And so this one, I'm like, okay, I'm still going to have that appearance, but I'm going to use tape. So that's how it's a fascinating story, I know, but it used to be mirrors.
One of my first guitars, I had the asinine idea to glue pennies to.
Oh my gosh.
Guitar ended up weighing like 100 pounds.
It was a good workout.
It's like playing a Les Paul.
Yeah.
Like guitars look like candy and keyboards look sterile to me for the most part. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Is there anything that you've done to that? I don't know why in my head I made the assumption that it was all taped up because you had like done like circuit bending or some like custom modifications to it that you needed to
I just don't like how it looks.
Cool. All right, that's just as well.
I thought it was just because she's so hard on it, like banging
yeah,
on
like
the
it had
key.
been cracked or something.
Do you find that does that mess up like the sensors at any point? Like,
I don't think so, but I do break a lot of keys. Like the last keyboard, I haven't on this keyboard yet, but the last brand of keyboard I used to break keys constantly. It was a real problem.
so since we're talking about aesthetic, do you, I really love your costume pieces.
Thank you.
And I know you do a lot yourself. And on the cover of Subset, you have a sewing machine. So I'm wondering how much of your own costume making you do.
I make all of my stage outfits.
That's awesome.
I design and make all of them.
And the pencil hairpiece.
Yeah, the pencil gun. Yeah,
That's so cool.
barrette.
I don't know how to say the thing in German, but Wagner had this term for making like a complete work. But there's the idea of basically like, you know, because as he's like writing these operas that there's going to be augmentation done to the theater. There's costuming, there's acting, there's the libretto, there's the music. It's like this top to bottom and wholly encompassing artistic vision that it sounds like at some level you're participating in your own world and work, because you're designing and manufacturing your own costumes, you're modifying the instruments, you're making all of the music yourself, creating the videos that these things all become encapsulated into, and writing the press release that it's sent out in.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that comes out of frustration, though, of working with others. Like, I have a hard time maybe communicating, like, what I want, it's been very frustrating in that sense for me. So, and also I do want to learn more. I want to keep learning. And so that all of those things went into me deciding to do more and more and more myself.
And is that going to be basically the MO for the next record as well?
I don't know. I don't know yet. When you are doing something kind of different too, it can be hard to find other people that are in that world with you.
Would you say you're done with this, basically this cycle of supporting the
Yes,
subset, and you're
yes.
on to the next thing? As more news of that comes out, where should people look to find out more about you? Do you maintain a rigorous social media presence, for instance?
I wouldn't call it rigorous, but I'm present on there, and I give information about what I'm doing, and also, I mean, I have a website too.
And that's just KRISTEENYOUNG.com.
If you can believe it, I have a website. Yes, KRISTEENYOUNG.com.
You're going back to work on the new album after you leave LA.
Yes.
You have any other dates or updates that people should be hip to?
I think I'm playing a show in New York on February 12th at, I think it's Club Cumming, like Alan Cumming, Club Cumming, and it's on East 6th Street.
Well, Christine, thank you very much for coming through. It was really a pleasure to get to see you in person again. And, you're a very fascinating musician, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to do next. So thank you so much for coming in and sitting on the green couch.
Thank you for asking me.
Aubrey, good night.
Good night.
That's all, yeah. On the Green Couch is a production of ArtSchool Records in conjunction with and recorded at Project 4 Studios in Burbank, California. The show is edited by Raz, with additional production support by Dixie Trussell. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review us in Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It all goes to helping other people find us. For more information, please visit our forever home on the web at artschoolrecords.com. I'm Bill Zunkin, and thanks for listening.